This video you're about to see, I filmed on my Nokia camera 2 years ago. God's time to release it now. Watch me 2 years ago, where I share my dismay. I'm back in my parents' house. The place I'd seen in a vision 20 years ago I will be in at the time of a nuclear attack that wipes out all life as far as my eye can see. Yet due to an angel of God, all that will stand in Miami, Florida, is this very house I find myself living in again. Though I filmed this in 2015 after I had just moved in a couple weeks before, unexpected things just kept me from completing it until, guess what? This very week, 3 days after North Korea shot its first intercontinental ballistic missile. A timing that seems to be godly. Now, to give evidence that I had shot this 2 years ago, and not to catch on the wave of this North Korea event, I'm wearing the very exact same hat that I did 2 years ago. And unfortunately, it's very evident there's a 2-year difference in age. I don't wear makeup, so there's no makeup department to hide things. That said, here's my little not so great pixelated video. Just 2 weeks ago, I moved from where I had been living because my husband had died. He died a few years ago, but the process of the legal process against the fight of releasing the house with the bank took years. But the thing is it's not about that. Is that over 2 decades ago, 2.5 decades ago, before I even met my husband, I had a prophetic dream. And actually, I didn't see how it could happen at the time, but this is how the dream went. It was the hours, or the next day after God's wrath had happened upon America. I'd never heard of Dmitri Dudimov, and I wasn't really familiar with Revelation and Babylon. Even, I wasn't even born again at the time, although I had been raised in the Catholic faith. And I love Jesus, but I certainly didn't know the Bible that well. But in this dream, I was in my parents' house. And I found in this dream I was outside. I walked outside of the house to see every single house, every single thing as far as the eye could see, utterly wiped away, like in a nuclear holocaust of some kind, where all buildings, all trees, all sign of life was utterly gone, and only down to the soil and various little craters was gone. All the neighborhood, all the blocks, all the houses, everything was utterly gone, except for this house, that my parents' house that I was in, and the lawn and everything up to the border was entirely intact. And I went out, and in there was a tall angel was standing in the yard. And this angel was visible to all my family members who were there in the house. And they were only there alive because they were in the house that I was in. And that angel was my angel. That angel was my guardian angel, who now, after that wrath, had completely physically manifested so that everyone in the family could see the angel as well. And that angel was there to assigned by God to take care of me and my family that was with me in this time that we were in and surviving. Now, of course, it was, when I woke from that, it was very startling because, first of all, my next door neighbors that I had grown up as a child, I was upset their house was gone. I said, how could God take them away? How could God destroy that family that I love so much? And then, of course, I couldn't forget that dream. But then I went on later on to marry and to leave my parents' house. And I never forgot about that. But it didn't seem any way that it could happen, because there's no way that I would want to, I was going to go back to my parents' house ever. Because that would have to be the foundation of it. And life went on. But then, of course, my husband died. But then, even then, so no way that I wanted to go back to my parents' house, irrespective of that dream. But it was always some little thing in the back of my mind. And I fought hard to retain my house. I actually was in a lawsuit against my husband's death that would have saved my home. But unknown to me, before that was going to pay out, the president of the company was actually put in prison for 25 years due to another crime, and that entirely dissolved that happening. I even went and entered 2 contracts to buy different houses. Even just 2 months ago, I entered a contract to buy a house because I was not going to come back to my parents' house. I could not. I had a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. I needed to have my own house. And unknown to me, circumstances unfolded that actually I did not go there. And the contract was broken and the money was returned to me. And it was so short to the time I had to leave the house that the only place I had to turn to was to go back to my parents' house. My parents' house. But some part of me wanted to refuse it because I never could forget that dream, that prophetic dream, and having faced God. And I was alive at the time of the day of wrath when he showed me that dream. I had the information that I would know that. I wanted to, at all costs, not have a scenario besides the fact that I didn't want to go back to my parents' house being independent. But now here I sit to you, sitting in my parents' house. Sitting in my parents' house. The situations are set up so that the neighbor who I had been distressed was also wiped out long ago, years ago, moved out. And instead, there's a stream of people that live there that don't live a godly life. Party and beer, bottles, and everything else. Not that I want anyone to perish. I don't want anyone to perish. That's why I'm putting all my effort to lead people to the way of salvation. But things are playing out. God's time frame is unfolding. Not just in my life, but in the lives of many others, and besides the signs of the time. I am greatly concerned now that here I am, in the house, established once more, where I saw myself over 2 decades ago, a survivor, where everything else was brought to destruction. Dmitry Dudamov, who was a prophet, he had an encounter, and he had several encounters, but in this one, an angel revealed to him that the place that I'm in, Florida, was one of the 3 places that Jesus considered a Sodom and Gomorrah, and he was going to destroy Florida. Well, I had not heard about, even knew about this prophet 2 years ago, but before I knew about him, I did know about Babylon and Revelation. And honestly, unless your eyes are closed, I mean, Babylon pretty much is like the United States, and the United States pretty much is Babylon. So, I just want to tell you, here's one more yet thing being fulfilled, that I'm back here. I'm set up in the house where I would be in at the time everything would be nuclear wiped out in some fashion. by some kind of devastating fire. Just everything gone. A wasteland, an utter wasteland. Nothing. No animal, nothing. Just this house standing that I'm in right now. And I also must impart to you, over the last year and a half, really, when I've been going through this transition, I've been having actual visitation with angel. That I even recorded just walking around the angel in my house. I'm not anything special, but I have the fear of God, and I want nothing but more than to be with Jesus in heaven and to be eternally with heaven. That means I refuse the world. I reject the world. I try to walk at the narrow way. I have a hat on my head out of obedience to the Bible, where a woman does not speak prophecies or pray in church without it. Why? Some today do not, because they say it's the thing of old. I'll tell you why. Because belief in Jesus, belief in his way, is a belief unto obedience, a willing obedience. I willingly will do whatever I know that the Lord desires. This part of not being one of those who perish, one of the people of God, is that you take the time to know him, so that you will abide in him and you will not perish. The foundation of that is familiarizing with the whole workings and instructions and ways within here. The whole Bible. Don't let someone spoon feed to you so that unknown to you you're missing something. Learn all of God's way, and you got to cram it quick because the time is running out. But I'm telling you, the foundation of everything is to live a holy and righteous way. It's Titus 2:13. For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people. Training us. That means you're being taught, is not imputed. Training us to renounce ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live, this is a lifestyle, controlled, self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in the present age, not the age of yore. And it starts with the Psalm 101 lifestyle. I will walk with integrity within my own house. I will not set my eyes upon anything worthless. Television is Satan's way to brainwash you and to hold you away from Jesus. You are being brainwashed lifestyles and ways that are ungodly. You are leaving that every night defiled by it, compromising yourself by it. Turn it off. Turn it off. During your meal. When you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When you're eating your worldly food, consume your spiritual food as well. Because man does not live by bread alone, but by every word breathed out by God. That means, in order to live, to make it to eternal life, you have to feed as often or more every day your spiritual nature with the sustenance of God, in order to build yourself up and to be able to not perish from lack of knowledge, not wither down away and just be taken by this wind or that wind of the world. All right, now this is the afterword. This really isn't something that I want to happen. I really hope it doesn't happen. In fact, it doesn't really even have to be literal. It doesn't have to literally mean that my house is going to be left standing. It can be like a Daniel dream. There's symbolism there. Or I could find myself literally in this situation, because we have a God that can part the Red Sea. He can part the Red Sea and hold it for a whole nation to go through. You know what that means? That means that base of that sea that was all soggy was suddenly, impossibly made firm, that a nation with animals and such could go through. And at the timing of that God, close in on the people. So that's the kind of God that can most certainly wipe all life away, as I have just shown you, and leave only the plot of land of the house that I'm at, verdant and perfectly functional. What is the message? What we should get from this? Get ready. Get yourself right with God. This is the message we should be taking from all these last day visions and dreams that God is imparting, as he said he would, to all his servants. Get your house in order. Be ready, so that when the Lord enacts his wrath on Babylon, especially those of us in the United States, be ready, so that the Lord will have his hand over you and your family. Because not everyone in my family is saved, but everyone in that house with me, I was shown, was spared the wrath.